Cecilia Gray was a child born during the Lost Days. She was a curious one since her birth, which I had been too weak to witness. I was dying, just as hundreds of gods and goddesses died before me. In the Lost Days, it didn't matter if your believers were made up of tens of thousands or as little as one. Believers died. They died in battle, or the after effects, the very much seen consequences of having fought a bloody war. Qiton lost half his followers when the fires raged war on his crops.
What has Qiton done for us?
The farmers said, watching their crops burn and their children starve. Qiton was a good lad, and so were his parents. His mother was the kind of goddess who made sure that the lesser gods knew how to pick fertile land, how to conserve energy and blessings for when they were most needed. She had been a lesser goddess herself before meeting Qiton's father. He did the best he could for his believers despite the circumstances. He fell into a long sleep when he realized that he didn't have the power left in him to continue. The last thing he asked me to do was to watch over his people, and I told him that I would love to, except for the fact that I too would be sleeping a more permanent sleep than him.
What about Cecilia?
Qiton asked. What about her? I replied. So Qiton slept and I inched closer to death until my question was answered. I woke up to a rock. It wasn't anything special. It wasn't rose quartz or diamond or ruby or emerald, but it was polished. It had a prayer attached, as all tributes did.
I pray to you, Linus, God of homes. Please let my family live to see tomorrow.
A simple wish. Cecilia Gray was the youngest of 8. Her family were farmers. Qiton was always aware of the farmers, and her father had been murdered in a raid a few weeks ago. He left behind 5 daughters and 3 sons. The sons were young. His 3 eldest were all daughters. It was rumored that there would be another raid soon, and so Cecilia Gray sought out anyone or anything that could help. I watched over their family the first night, and there was no trouble, no raids. I watched Cecilia throughout the night as she tossed and turned, waking at any noise. I burned a little energy to do the same. Though Cecilia called me the god of homes, I was a lesser god and to no specific name. I had few talents, but staying awake was something any god could achieve with even a tenth of a tribute. When she did manage to fall asleep, the sun woke her up and she immediately set out for the quarry. She spent half the morning looking for the right rock, though who could have told her that the shape and size hardly mattered, and she spent the rest of the morning polishing the thing. By lunch, because she skipped breakfast, she sent another prayer. The same as the last night.
I pray to you, Linus, God of homes. Please let my family live to see tomorrow.
Granted, I thought. I burned her energy, staying awake, watching the horizon for signs of attack. None happened, and Cecilia slept a little more soundly through the night. Now I had nearly 2 days of energy to burn and live, adding to my stockpile of barely a week. Days passed, and I collected the energy, praying to Cecilia myself that she wouldn't forget to make the wish. She never did. A month passed, and I was that much stronger now. With more energy to spare, I could afford to establish a few rules on her home. If I spent enough time in one location, I could spend energy to fortify its defenses. The returns were marginal, but it could buy a day at most, but that was years off. Currently, I could spend all of my energy to protect Cecilia and her family for at most an hour. Cecilia spent most mornings collecting rocks and sleeping throughout the night. Her family's farm had recovered slightly, and the boys were growing stronger themselves. One night, I saw a light from afar. A village over? Closer than that? I saw plumes of smoke follow shortly after, and I knew it to be trouble. I burned some energy right away, 10% of it if I had to guess. I shook the home and fortified its walls so that it could at the very least withstand a battering ram or the blast of a trebuchet. This woke Cecilia, who still slept lightly, better, but lightly yet. She stayed still in her bed, and the lights from the village over grew closer. I couldn't wake her, send her a message, or do anything to alert her. I was a lesser god after all. The lights grew closer, and I realized there was one thing I could do. I took the rocks that Cecilia collected and rearranged them outside her home, closer to the path she took to get to the quarry. I inhaled, a deep breath before I burned the energy I had, all of it. "Qiton," I said, The Gray's farm have recovered, and it's about time you perform your proper job. I have watched over Cecilia, and now I pray to you to protect her and her family." Dying was a simple thing even for gods, quite different than waking up or falling asleep, and I heard Qiton's response when I slept permanently. I felt Qiton's power rush through the land. He split the ground apart, the raiders falling through, their light dying the same way I did. Cecilia would wake up the next day and find a message waiting for her.
Thank you.